for all the marbles.
Yeah.
You know, so at least your own personal marbles.
So then you went to Iraq in what year? 2005?
Yeah, in 2005. So I wound up going to Korea, did a tour over there.
Okay.
They started sending units over a little bit at a time. There wasn't, it wasn't the entire army deployed to Iraq. So I had another duty assignment in the interim. And then once I got to Fort Riley, Kansas, I learned that we were deploying within the next year, and it was time to really bear down and get serious about things.
Did you just get to that unit?
I had just got to that unit. I had just become a sergeant.
They surprise you with
about a month prior, and I got to that unit. I kind of knew, they have a patch chart, so you kind of understand which units are going. And they tend to fill units before about a year out, so that there's a cycle that the Army uses to ramp units up and prepare them to go. I was part of that cycle. Got there, understood what was ahead of me, and I think that's when I really decided to drop all the BS. The drugs, the messing around, and really get serious about.
Was 9/11
life,
or
the life.
05?
05 when I realized I was going to Iraq. Yeah, it just kind of made me understand that, I'm not only responsible for me, but I'm responsible for the guy to my left and right, and I want to do the best. I don't want somebody else to get hurt because I couldn't pull my weight. I couldn't do my job. And in order to do that, I need to be in the best possible state I can be.
So where were you in Iraq?
I was stationed at a place called Camp Taji, which is north. I think it's still there, actually. But it's just north of Baghdad. And it's a long route called Highway 1 that basically runs the width north and south of Iraq through all the major centers.
Okay.
So it's the main artery. At first, when we got over there, we were supporting EOD and providing EOD security. So we were basically running all over the place, getting bombs defused and collecting evidence in order to track down people in the network. Some of that included picking up the body parts of terrorists and other people who had been injured in those attacks. And that was
I think that's the thing.
Realize,
I think that's the thing people don't grasp. Those bombs are going off. If a civilian walks on the bomb, it's going to go off.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways to make them more discriminatory, but, in 2005, that the insurgents were evolving, and that was becoming their main method of attack. And, those bombs just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and doing more and more collateral damage, and the people over there were really struggling because they're caught between a rock and a hard place. They're caught between, the might and force of the U.S. Army that's over there trying to
appease.
And,
trying to appease both sides.
When we leave an area, the bad guys move back in, and anybody who was there helping us, they didn't have a very good time about it. So it's a very complicated situation. That time in my life, it was exciting. War's kind of like what everybody says, it's boredom, just such utter boredom and repetition, punctuated by
hurry up and wait,
extreme chaos in the craziest ways. So,
how do you deal with that? Like mentally, what are the things that go through your mind when you're thinking those thoughts, like the boredom, the repetition, and then the chaos? Like what goes on? What do you tell yourself during those moments? What's going on?
Well, you tell yourself to stay frosty. You tell yourself that you tell yourself that you need to have discipline.
Sure.
And the people around you need to be disciplined enough to, even though whatever we're doing is monotonous or boring or whatever, that it's important, and that failure to do your job correctly could have catastrophic consequences. So,
sure,
that's how you push through, when it's 130 degrees outside and you want to take, your 100 pounds of body armor off. Mm-hmm. Well, no, you just don't, because, you're disciplined and you understand what the consequences of that minimal action could be. So I think that's how you get through it. And then you get through it with humor. A lot of military vets have a lot of gallows humor kind of mentality, and it makes sense. And, I don't think a whole lot of people sometimes get it, how dark that humor is. Or it's not funny. You're talking about, you're joking about dismemberment and death, but those are the things that are around you.
Yeah.
So if you don't joke about it, what else are you going to do?
You have to find a way to laugh at it and make it bearable.
Yeah, or else it's going to break you.
You have to find a way to rise above it.
You don't want it. Yeah, you don't want it to break you, and then you got guys that are frozen and they can't do anything.
For sure.
I like what you said there, that because I think other people can relate, even if they haven't been in war, they haven't done that kind of stuff. But the repetition, basically telling yourself that I have to keep going, regardless if it's 130 degrees and it's super dry, and every time you take a step, the powder rises up, and you're like in a desert. But it's like almost like snow. Anyways, I had a friend kind of explain it that way. But yeah, you have to keep doing what you're supposed to do. And people can relate with that even just in life. Sometimes there's mundane things that we got to do.
For sure.
It can suck in the moment, but having that mindset of resilience and that iron will get you through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and sometimes the only way is through, There's no way around. There's no way under. There's no way over. Sometimes the only way is through. And so that, that's an important trait that I picked up, from all that training, is like sometimes you just gotta, how do you eat the elephant? You eat it one bite at a time, and you just gotta get through it.
So you're still in Iraq, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So at a certain point, my job switched. We stopped doing EOD security, and we started doing this new thing called route clearance. So basically, my dumbass, can I say, my idiot self, decided that it would be a great idea to drive up and down one of the busiest highways in Iraq and look for those bombs, in order to help find them.
And what vehicle were you in?
So at that point, I was driving a thing called a Buffalo. Okay. So the the Transformer series had one in it briefly. It's just this giant 6-wheeled truck that almost looks like a boat sitting on 6 wheels, and then has an arm that comes out the front. Yeah, but it's an MRAP. It's mine protected, and it's probably one of the beefier vehicles. It's definitely the most beefy vehicle we had at the time.
Yeah.
And so it's designed to absorb those explosions. I experienced several inside that thing, and I can say that it, without a doubt, saved my life, over a dozen times.
And
so
would it get the vehicle out of commission, or did you just load it up and go again?
It depends, Sometimes, we get the windows peppered and you'd have to change those out, Sometimes, you pop a couple tires, but, sometimes there was some hardcore damage that was done, and, the vehicle needed to be, sent back in, and you needed to get a new one.
Yeah.
It just depending on the level of, the damage varies depending on, how those explosives are placed and how much, a lot of different variables. But yeah, I think that's where like the MTBI kind of comes into the story. I don't know if that's still like a catchphrase, MTBI or whatever, but basically you're inside a fishbowl with a lid on top.
Yeah.
And, when those explosions go off, it's like rattles. It's like a can being crushed from the outside, and you're inside and you just feel all that pressure.
Yeah.
It's got to go somewhere. You wind up absorbing it. I would much rather absorb it that way than, without being into Buffalo. That could be a lot worse. But I think those repetitive pressure hits to my head, they definitely knock off my equilibrium. My balance will never be the same as it was.
Yeah.
I now get seasick sometimes, which never used to happen. And I used to be a rock climber, and I'm not afraid of heights. I don't trust myself in the balance arena.
Do your ears constantly ring?
For sure.
Yeah.
It sometimes it's more noticeable than not. When there's a lot of ambient noise around, I can't pick through the ambient noise to hear conversation as well.
Does it kind of sound
so
like?
It definitely impacts me.
Does it kind of sound like being in a large stadium full of people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just, it's a weird feeling to describe. Like, it is a constant ringing and, buzzing in your head. Sometimes it's more noticeable than others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just makes it difficult to interact in a large group setting.
I had that same issue with my traumatic brain injury, and it's just so almost debilitating in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it impacts a whole bunch of different things, like your sleep. You're laying there, it's quiet, you're trying to sleep, and all you can hear is there's a ringing in your head. Like, somebody won't turn off the school bell, and then that can get, it's like anything. It's like, being pestered by a mosquito. After a while, like, that'll drive you nuts.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever fallen asleep with a mosquito in the tent with you? Or?
Oh, yeah. What was that quote I sent you? If you don't think that small actions can affect big things, like, have you ever slept with a mosquito? Or I forget the saying, but like little things can do big damages over the long term.
Yep. Sure. So, did you notice these effects while you were still in Iraq, or was this something that you noticed later on?
Back then, they weren't. Now the Army is very focused on CPE, and brain injuries, but back then, like I said, those tactics were just evolving. So, we would get concussions, and you're good. You got a concussion.
Yeah.
It's fine. So, you go back to the hooch, you throw up over the course of the evening, drink some water, and you get back to work in the morning,
Drink some water and take some ibuprofen.
Take some ibuprofen and change your socks, and you're good to go. Like, those are the three things that a person needs to survive.
Yeah. So you were changing jobs and doing route clearance, and you were experiencing, like, being blown up multiple times.
Yeah.
And so was that pretty much how your Iraq tour ended?
We had a successful year. We did have some losses in our unit, but overall, we accomplished the mission that we were sent over to accomplish. And, our time came up, and we whipped out with the unit that was coming in behind us, tried to give them the best information that we could. And, we went home. Right before we went home, I had got off mission, and, I've been up for a couple of days. Finally get to sleep, and then somebody's banging on the door to my hooch. I get up, I'm pissed. I open up the door, and my first sergeant's standing there, and he's like, "Hey, bud, you got orders. You're going to go be a drill sergeant." Fuck you, and slammed the door. I couldn't handle that at that point.
Yeah.
I just want to sleep, man. Like, I'm not looking. Oh no.
Yeah. Get used to waking up.
Yeah. So that's we went home. We demobilized and reset. And at that point, a lot of us got orders to go be drill sergeants and recruiters, and go to different units and share the knowledge that we had with.
Is that kind of the Army's method? Is to get people right off of deployment that are sergeants? Yeah,
it definitely was at that point in time. There's different milestones you need to hit in your career. And for an enlisted guy like myself, being a drill sergeant or a recruiter is kind of one of those things that most likely one of those is going to happen to you. And so, I got back and, told my wife we were moving to South Carolina. Went to drill sergeant school at Fort Leonard Wood. Somehow managed to graduate that madness. And then, promoted myself to E6 en route to my new duty assignment as a drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And when I say promoted myself, I mean my orders came through, but I was not currently assigned to a unit, so I just switched the patches. I was legally promoted to staff sergeant.
Yeah.
So what's that like? You from you going through all that, but then like being the one that gets to yell at everybody else. That's how I imagine a drill sergeant is, the guy that yells at everybody, right? So So is it fun to tell orders, or you got to be just as disciplined as them, right? Because you got